Thanks to Simple Content for sponsoring this episode of Against the Algorithm. Are you ready to take your content strategy to the next level? Look no further than simplecontent.com, spelled SIMPL content.com. They specialize in helping you grow your audience through expert content strategy, compelling writing that positions you as the brand authority, and team development services to elevate your content operations. Whether you're a startup, an established business, or an entrepreneur looking to make your mark, simplecontent.com offers tailored solutions to meet your needs. Learn more today at simplecontent.com or email content@simplcontent.com to get started. Make your content life simple with simplecontent.com.
This podcast was recorded in front of live studio cats.
Hello! Welcome to Against the Algorithm. My name's Malik. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you're having a lovely day. If you are not having either of those days, I hope that this podcast can be a little bit of solace in the world suck that's going on right now. As you can tell, I'm still rusty at these intros. We're working on it. I promise by the end of the season, these intros are going to roll like butter. But I don't also know. Maybe you like the rambly rant. And so let me know. You can follow ATA_pod on Twitter or Against the Algorithm on Instagram. If you're like, please shut up, mute podcast boy. Just get to the interview. That totally works for me. But I'm going to try to keep this one shorter compared to last week's episode. So you have my promise there. But when I stopped doing this podcast for a little bit, I did the reasonable thing that anyone would do, and that was work on a completely different podcast as their social media manager and then eventually their producer. And that podcast is called Creative Block. It's still going on. It's absolutely amazing. If you have not heard of Creative Block, please fix that right now. The podcast was created originally by Briat and Gene Goldstein. Gene left the podcast to go work on his animation studio, Jellybox Studios. Don't know, I blanked there for a second. While V continued to work on the podcast with a rotating list of hosts, and mainly Sean Glaze being one of them. But it was such an amazing opportunity. I love the crew that works on that podcast. If you're remotely a fan of animation or you're even interested in getting in the animation industry, I feel like this is the perfect podcast for you to get cool, insightful conversations with just a fun angle of seeing some amazing artists do their thing and draw. Whether it's webcomics, animation, there's no linear path, and Creative Block is just the perfect resource for all of that. And so with the podcast shifting gears from talking just to musicians to talking to all types of creatives, I felt like it was fair to do a little reunion and talk to V again and just catch up. We went from talking every single day about Creative Block and just how we were doing to really infrequently. And V is, I can't say enough, an absolute ray of sunshine there. Their positive energy and their just excitement for things is super infectious. And so it felt like an amazing opportunity to catch up and talk. On top of that, V works on an unholy amount of projects. In addition to Creative Block, they are also working on their webcomic Rodney R, which is you can find on their Instagram and their social media channels. And it is amazing. Please check it out. When we talked about them hitting the landmark of 250 chapters or 250 pages, which is mind-blowing for a project like that. But that wouldn't be enough for me. On top of that, V has also recently worked on a series of Smalls Adult Swim shorts called High Moon Queen. There are 3. You can watch them all on YouTube. They're 11 minutes, be in and out, and you'd be better for it. Your life would be truly better for it. We co-created the shorts with Samantha Gray, so we talk a little bit about that. We talk a little bit just about the creation process for doing cool shorts with Adult Swim, and you get some little insight, which is really, really awesome. And all together, so we talk about all that stuff, but like I said in the beginning, this is just a really cool catch-up session with a really awesome person, and I feel like you will have a fantastic time tuning into that, I hope. But with all that being said, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Past Malik take it from here. And so sit back, relax, enjoy my conversation with Vee. I'll catch you back here on the other end with all the housewarming stuff. But for now, enjoy. I did this intro last time, and it was so funny because when I did the intro, it is so hard to look the guest in the eye and not have it be silly. So you know this person as the creator of Rodney R. Rodney, the co-host of the Creative Block podcast, the co-creator of High Moon Queen. It's the one, the only, the Briat. Did I get the last name right?
Yeah, the only thing, so I usually, it's just that you don't pronounce the T at the end. So but
Briat.
Yeah, Briat, yeah.
Okay. I love that, like, build up all the momentum and then immediately dropped it. And I was like, hey!
I'm so sorry.
No.
Like, I always kind of like go back and forth with whether or not I should like correct people on pronunciation. I'm like, yeah, like most of the time, no one's going to say my last name. So
no, it means it's your last name. So please correct. And it is on the record. I mean, honestly, what I should have added to that list was also like former boss ? For a little bit too, technically.
That is true. I was your boss. Oh my God. I was so evil. I was making you do all-nighters all the time.
Oh no, it was horrible. So this whole podcast is a sting. This is the V is over party. A bunch of people are in the Zoom waiting room and it's over for you.
Oh my God. That would be my like nightmare. I would be like, no. That is so funny.
That would be, I don't know. I legitimately don't know what I would do in that sort of situation where it's just like, hey, a bunch of people are like here to call you out.
I would just like change my name. I would change my name and like move to a different country.
I know this is counterintuitive, but then my first question is, what would you change your name to? What would your new identity name be?
I think I would try to do something. I would try to do the most mundane like name ever so that when you Google it, it's impossible to know who it is. Like, I don't know, something like, I'm trying to think of like a very mundane kind of name. Like,
I'm thinking like we go like young adult adventure. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna say something like, I don't know, Katie Smith.
You know, I want to Google what comes up when you say Katie Smith.
I feel like there's probably a million. No.
So Katie Smith, first thing that pops up is she is the lead assistant coach of the Minnesota Lynx of the Women's National Basketball Association. So that's what the podcast is going to be about.
Or like secret love of women's basketball. But honestly, like that would be like the best cover. Like nobody could ever like find me just because it's like all of Google is all about her.
That's true. That is very true. But yeah, no, for people who might not have known, because my tenure was a year, I, for a little bit, was the producer on the Creative Block podcast. If you don't know what that show is, it is an amazing show where V and typically Sean Glaze, who's also awesome, talk, and they doodle jam while they talk about their life, work, and hobby. No, hold on. I got it. V and Sean talk about their life, work, and hobbies while they doodle jam.
Yes.
Still, I'm like, I listened to episodes to remember before we came back on. I mean,
so funny.
It's past the 3-year mark. So I feel like the first question I want to ask is just like over 150 episodes. Just this started off as a pandemic project between you and the former co-host Gene. How does it feel? It feels like it's a blink of an eye. It feels like it's flashed by so quickly, but like for you, you've been in it. Like, feel like for the most part, you've been in most, if not all, the episodes. I feel like there's a little bit where you like, I don't know if there's a few episodes.
I think the only episodes I wasn't in were the music box episodes, but that you hosted and Gene was co-hosting sometimes. But all the other episodes I was in, and for me, it's important to be in all the episodes just because the podcast is a great way to meet everybody in animation. Like, it's been a great way for me to reach out and cold email like people that I've never talked to before, and I think that's a ton of fun to do that. And I don't know, I feel like just being like the consistent presence throughout has also to just kind of keep the vibe a little bit like similar, I guess, like
Yeah.
a consistent kind of like editorial tone, I guess. Yeah.
I totally get what you mean. And I feel like it's also just a really solid North Star. Because the one thing I always remember you talking about a lot about in the show is this being an amazing resource for people coming up in the animation industry. Because there wasn't a podcast where you got the sheer amount of people who did so many jobs and being really transparent about like the highs and the lows of like the animation industry. I mean, right now the animation is it's such like I feel like every day you open up Twitter.
It's crazy.
It's crazy right now.
It's so crazy. But I do think it's like the tides are turning. So I do think like better things are coming. But I think definitely animation is crazy right now, but I think it's all of Hollywood. So I think they just kind of go hand in hand. It's just kind of like animation is like the little offshoot of it. But like,
yeah,
like everything that's happening in animation, it's happening also in like live action, whether it be TV or feature live action. So I think it's just like, and this is not secret, like you guys can all like Google it or like read any of the like the trades, like the Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Vox, kind of like all of these papers. They always kind of highlight how there's like a ton of mergers. There's also like a lot of the big like head of the studios, they don't really know how to make money.
yeah.
It's just crazy, but they're like, we have all this content and we have all this talent, but we just don't know how to make money with this. And like, because all these papers kind of like they talk also about like shareholders and like kind of like the finances aspect of it. So and I was listening to a podcast episode on the Journal with, what's his name? One of the guys that was on Shark Tank, and he recently retired from Shark Tank.
Was it Mark Cuban?
Yes, Mark Cuban. Yeah. It's a really good interview, and it's really short. If anybody's interested in his take on Hollywood, but he talks about it briefly, and he's like, "Oh, it's too volatile. It's too volatile. Like right now, like it's in the toilet, like the shares and stuff. So potentially, it could be like an interesting stock to buy, but for him as like a long running investor who's like, I'm not touching this. Yeah, so I'm like,
and for me, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, whoops. So yeah. So that's crazy. So it comes from the top and it trickles down. And what we're seeing on Twitter is like the trickle down effect from like that kind of fear in Wall Street, pretty much.
Absolutely. And I mean, it still feels shitty to have like when you're like, we're talking about animation, it's like, oh yeah, Wall Street. You're like, what? Like,
it's so crazy. Yeah, you have to think about it just a little bit. Just like, I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends in terms of how people interact with the content, the medium. I would say for someone who is a consumer of animation, if you have money to share, obviously, if you're struggling to pay rent or whatever, which is the majority of us. So I mean, obviously, definitely only if you're like feeling comfortable. A great way to support like the arts that you love is to go directly to the artist through like a Patreon or like a Ko-Fi. But also like, it's like, I think it's just like the economy just like across the board is just kind of like really tight. And our generations, like us millennials and then the Zoomers, are like, we're just kind of like on a, like, we're getting hit the hardest. So it's kind of like, I kind of like get it that it's tough to support the artists that you love. But I think sometimes if the math is like, okay, do I want to pay $20 to Netflix, or instead of that, support 4 artists that I love? If you're not happy with Netflix, then maybe it could be interesting to, instead of paying Netflix, paying that money directly to the artist.
For sure. And right here is we're going to put the plug for Creative Block Patreon or Vee's Coffee account. Either one.
Either way, I'm okay financially. So if you guys are like, I don't know, if anyone's listening to this and they have like a list of 10 artists, I mean, obviously I would love to support, but like definitely prioritize the people who like seem to be like, you know, like that's their 100% job. Like for me, because this is both the podcast and the my Ko-Fi is like what I do on the side, and I do. Thankfully, I'm really thankful that I managed to keep an animation job, and that's how I pay my bills. So
nice.
I'm just, sure.
Just
wanted to put it out there. I don't want anybody to feel like,
you're like, I gotta, no. Kind of getting back into Creative Block a little bit. I mean, it feels like there were always so many crazy ideas we were trying to come up with for like what's next or what we wanted to do. We're always expanding. I remember I was like lurking when you guys were doing the Twitter Spaces, and it was like so cool to hear.
That was so fun. Oh my God. I wish we could do more of these.
Yeah.
A lot of work behind the scene was happening where I was calling Sean and Marco, and we were trying to set it up, and we were all kind of like, whoa, what are we doing? What I want to do, I still don't know how to feel about Twitter. I feel like, I don't know. I thought it was going to die for sure, but then at an event I was tabling at recently, like selling Rodney and everything, I was like, oh, how did you find out about Rodney? Were you like Instagram? Or they're like, probably not Instagram because I'm not on that platform. And then they were like, and I was like, Twitter? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure Twitter. And I was like, no. So I'm like, because I want to leave that platform so bad, but I can't. And I'm like, no.
It feels nuts to see how much it's still, if it's surviving in spite of constantly, like the dirt constantly gets thrown on it, and it's just like, I'm not dead yet.
It's not dead. The only thing I will say though is that it is definitely seen as more of a almost alt-right platform now. So I am a little bit, I don't know. I feel like until there's like a huge like public outcry that like, you know, like Twitter is the new, like, I don't know, 4chan or whatever. I won't like leave it. I'm like, I was just like, I mean, I'm also, I don't know.
You're like, Twitter is a cesspool, but it's my cesspool until engagement.
It's not that bad. Yeah, it's not like entirely contaminated. It's like, oh, I could still hang out. I could still take a bath in this. You know, like, and you come out, you still have like, I don't know, like pustules and like pimples, but you're like, at least my leg didn't like
turn into like a tentacle. You
know.
So oh my gosh, like, and like my job is social media, so it's like I'm never gonna escape this.
Oh my God. So what platforms are you doing right now, like besides, you know, like are you doing any of these kind of like outliers like Mastodon or like Cohort? No.
So mine's like a nonprofit, and so it's a nonprofit, it's a fitness thing. I'm doing Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
So like,
okay, cool.
So not going too far. We were about to jump into TikTok, but then the TikTok ban happened. So we were like, we're just kind of like,
I know. I feel like TikTok, dude, TikTok was so good. I was really into TikTok because it, like, the algorithm was really good. The only thing with TikTok is that you have to post every day, and that's really hard.
Yeah.
But it was working so well for me. I got a lot of new readers for Rodney thanks to TikTok. And then I took a hiatus, so now the platform hates me again. So I'm like, and then the ban happened, so I'm like, okay, well maybe I was right to just like take a hiatus or whatever.
I mean, hey, and I kind of want to get into Rodney now because like you are constantly doing between Creative Block, Rodney, like High Moon Queen, like you are doing so much on a regular basis, and you just crossed over 250 pages on Rodney. So I kind of want to talk about this, like that big achievement of like hitting that page milestone and getting that far. And like while Creative Block is your baby, because Creative Block is a project you like you started and you've been in all the episodes, but Rodney's like a project that like is like so purely yours and like there's no one else working on it. I mean, how does it feel to get to 250 pages and have that support? And like, what is that? I know there was a little hiatus here and there, but like, what does that feel like for you?
Honestly, I mean, it's so cool. I had done long running projects before, but I had never really had the support I'm getting with Rodney. And because I did a comic previously that was 100 pages, and I was looking at it again, and it wasn't bad, but I think it was like the story wasn't very clear, and I think a lot of it was a little bit like up in the air. When I was reading it again, I'm like, oh, I can see how like some of the stuff doesn't quite make sense. So for me, when I was drawing it at the time, it made sense, but I think for somebody reading it like some information was missing, the characters weren't clear. So even though I did make it to 100 pages and I was really happy with that, and there were some scenes that I was really proud of, it didn't feel as exciting as for Rodney, where I'm like, oh, I'm so happy because I feel like things are clear, we know where things are going, and I feel like now people catch on to the little threads of story that I put together, especially things like even though they sound like they're small story beats, the fact that people are like, oh, I really wonder what this story beat is going to turn into is so exciting, because I'm like, oh, I'm and I love when people are like, oh no, I'm really scared. And I'm like, that's the best comments, because I'm like, oh, they know, like they're expecting something to happen, but they don't know how that thing is going to turn out. And that's the bet. I feel like for me, that's the finally I've reached some kind of like a level in writing where I feel very excited with what I can do now. So I'm very happy about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also 250 pages is the most I've ever done. So that's super, super cool. However, I will say one thing that I'm a little worried about is because I've been doing so much like you were bringing up, I'm worried about getting sidetracked from Rodney, because I think that's something that can happen with a lot of long running projects, is that you can easily, as a creative, get really excited about the new shiny thing, and you're like, oh, I want to pursue that new thing.
Yeah.
And then even though you did such a good job and went so far in the previous project, like I fear that I wouldn't be able to finish it, because it's really important for me that I would finish it. And I'm guessing I would finish, it would be around 300 pages when it's done.
Oh, okay. So we're closing in.
We're closing in. Yeah, it's very close to the end. I have some sequences that have been in my head for years. And I think that's the hardest part, is like thinking of these like great scenes and being so excited about them and having to wait so long to get to draw them, just because, well, drawing a comic, even though it's really fast to do, it's also slow, because you want to like write it all out correctly, build everything correctly. And yeah, and so between the moment I had the idea, I think it's been at least 2 years since I know what the end is going to be. 2 years and a half. And so I'm like, I can't wait for people to see the end. It's going to blow their mind. And, That's kind of what I'm like. That's where I am, but I have to make sure I get there. So
no, for sure, and I totally get what you mean in terms of just like not. I wouldn't say sidetrack because like, but I know literally sidetrack because I feel like with this show, I literally was like, hey, I'm doing this thing, and I'm like, I'm done now.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of like found and bounced around a little bit, but found my way back. I mean, in terms of keeping like whenever you get those urges to like want to kind of like to just not jump around, but like try something new, and like how do you remember to like make sure you always have a hand on Rodney, or like to like whenever you're working on a long running project, create a block too, like keeping the hand on the wheel so you're not fully letting go.
I think honestly, okay, like in the nitty gritty of things. Okay, so I am a huge fan of Dr. K. His channel is Healthy Gamer.
Oh yeah.
I love him so much. He's so smart and so many good interviews, and I've learned so much thanks to his YouTube channel. And he has one video on focus, which was so great. And he defined it as like focus is the ability to hold one thought in your mind. And I was like, that is so smart and so true. And so I think that's why vision boards work, because you always see the thing, and like whatever you put on your vision board, you don't forget about it. And I think for Rodney, I do things that kind of help me keep it in my head, where it's like I have a sketchbook, or I mean, I would say more a notebook. Okay. I'm making the difference because it's been very recent in my career that I have books that have more notes in them than drawings. So okay. I'm making the difference. So I do have like a notebook that has all the ideas for Rodney in it. I also do a lot of like bullet journaling. My bullet journaling style is very all over the place. I'm not as thorough as some of my friends. I have some friends that I'm like, wow, you're like the gold standard of bullet journaling.
I've been trying to get into bullet journaling. I mean, I feel like if you look at the notes I do for like episodes, it feels like it's like a light version of like
it is a really nice layout though that you have. I don't know if you're going to show the video of this.
I'm thinking clips, but yeah, I might do like clips here and there, but not too big deal. But let's see.
Yeah, for people who are listening, that was a really nice layout that Malik just showed.
I mean, listen, there's no doodle board or like there's no. I mean, how is Jamboard still? Because like I miss it sometimes, but it feels so finicky.
It is finicky, but I mean, it's going away anyway. So my lifelong dream of being sponsored by Google Jamboard is coming to an end all by itself. We're gonna have to switch over to Magma, which I'm a little bit worried about because Magma has a ton of options and things you can do with it, and I like that Jamboard. It was just like MS Paint, pretty much.
It felt super simple. It felt like there was no, you didn't have to be neat. Like you could kind of choose the level of intensity you wanted to do with it, with the amount of tools you had.
Exactly. No, I love it. I love that about it, that it was just like, oh, I really don't have to think. But with Magma, it's like a full on, like almost Photoshop. And I'm like, oh no, it's too much. But I mean, some guests really like having all of the tools. So I think it'll be also for the better.
I mean, it opens it to them.
Like I got sidetracked about the bullet journaling. But yeah, my bullet journaling is more like an endless to-do list. So I mean, I'm gonna maybe you can like blur it out if you use this.
Sure, yeah.
But it looks kind of like, I mean, this is like a huge composition book. Usually I try to do like smaller, but I have like lots of little like to-do lists, and sometimes every now and then I do like a very long one. Like this one is like a long one, and then I pick and choose from like which one I need to prioritize. I try to often do like maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks, like these really like massive to-do lists, so that things don't fall through the cracks. And every time I finish like a notebook, I go through it, and every items on the to-do list I didn't complete, I carry over to the new notebook. So I try really hard to do that. And I've noticed that if I don't do to-do lists, I am like, I have a really hard time focusing on what I need to do.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I've been able to kind of keep track of Rodney. And also I have like a little fan art of it. Like that I kind of like people have given me. I kind of like have it on my desk so I can remember like I need to do it for everybody, not just me, also everybody out there. Yeah.
That is such a sweet way at the end to just kind of like mention like, is this something that's like it becomes bigger than you after a certain point.
Yeah, and that is so cool. And honestly, like that's what I keep telling people, especially in animation. Like for me, having Rodney is like such a lifeline because like I'm in full control of it, not just creatively, but also like everything I draw, if I want to publish it, I can publish it. Like everything I write, everything I draw, I have obviously my own standards that I try to fulfill, but at the end of the day, whatever I want to post, I will post it and people will be able to see it and they will be able to react to it. Whereas right now in animation, it's so crazy that, you know, for a lot of people, it's been very demoralizing because, you know, you do get paid, but then you spend a lot of time just working on a thing and then it doesn't exist. And you're like, well, what was I doing with my life? Kind of, I mean, I was able to survive and live, but it's a really weird like spot to be in, like emotionally. And for me, having Rodney has really helped me through that because I'm like, well, even if my day job helps me stay afloat financially so that I can work on stuff that does exist that I do love, that people do see, and you know, so that's really cool. And yeah,
I feel like there's so much power in like just kind of like having something that feels like a level of ownership that like you're just like, this is mine. I kind of get to like determine the tone, the pace. Like honestly, I can't recommend like if you have the mental bandwidth, because it's a lot to do. So like especially if you're doing a creative job on your own, like already, but like if you're able to find the time and get the ability to, it feels like it's so great to really be able to just know that like no matter what, no one's keeping score, no one's keeping track. This feels like a full creative freedom, which is like really exciting.
Yeah, and also I would say like it doesn't have for anyone out there who's like, oh, but I don't have the time and this and that, and I don't know. And I think it's like you can just start with something small. Like I didn't start with Rodney right off the bat, and I was doing like a lot of things like amounting to it. I just got really lucky that I was kind of like really excited about that idea, and so I started drawing it and posting it, and I posted multiple times a day on Twitter about it, but the drawings were like really loose. And in my head I kind of keep going back to one, you know, like the artist who does One Punch Man or like Mob Psycho, like his drawings are just kind of whatever. I mean, I love his drawings, but it's like that's enough for people to get really excited and to like build a fan base. So I feel like as long as the writing is really strong or that you're having a ton of fun, like, and that, you know, it's all about, I'm a big advocate of like, you know, like even though I work a lot, it's like I'm very economical in the way I spend my energy. I try not, you know, I'm not a perfectionist because I feel like being a perfectionist, it kind of kills the drive. Yeah.
For sure. And I feel like also being strategic, like, oh, like, hey, here's where I need help, or here's where like teams come in too. And like finding those people that you can like say like, I trust them to be able to work on stuff like with Creative Block, where you have the team, you have the producer, you have Ibuka who's been doing like clips, which I feel like has been like a big thing like since the beginning. It was like we need clips, and it's like okay, time. Yeah.
I know. I was so happy we were able to bring in Ibuka because we had been talking on Discord for a long time, and I was like, oh, I wanna like hire you to do something. I wanna like, and he's so good and he's so sweet and funny. And he's also been doing like the promo images now.
Oh yeah.
I feel like, yeah, like so Ibuka's been doing like the little promo, the like prompt images. Yeah. And Clem now is doing the final images, and it's been so nice. I was like, you know what? You guys have been around long enough, and I am so unreliable with the schedule on these. And so they've been great. I think I was so happy that and now I can just give them a little bit, like some notes here and there, but it's really been like a huge like weight off my shoulders. And yeah, I'm just happy to support the kids.
I'm like training up the kiddos.
I know. I'm like, yay.
So I wanted to shift over a little bit because we need to talk about the Adult Swim shorts.
Yes.
We need to talk about High Moon Queen. I was watching them as they came out. I literally sat down and like watched them like one more time before we got on. I loved it. It sucks that the third one is the one that got suppressed because it took me a minute to find the final one.
I know, it's so sad, but I'm also like, oh, we're so bad.
Listen, we're too edgy for Adult Swim.
I know, and it's not even that we're too edgy for Adult Swim. It's just we're too edgy for Google, which is like a whole different thing. But it's so funny because Adult Swim were the one who picked the thumbnail. They picked the thumbnail with the butt and Astria, which I think is a great thumbnail. But I was like woo-wee, and then like it does suck that it's capping the views. But I think it's a great thumbnail. They could have maybe picked something where. I don't know. Maybe when the escort is just like, when we only see his chest, maybe that wouldn't have gotten censored. But I just thought that was so funny. We had so much fun doing this episode, and Sean does the voice, which is so funny.
Yeah. So for anyone who haven't heard, so I'm gonna rewind a little bit. Vee, alongside Samantha S. Gray, created 3 shorts for Adult Swim called High Moon Queen, and they I feel like they're 15 minutes tops, together. So I don't know if that's the right timing. But
yeah, it's each episode is 3 minutes. Okay. So all together, back to back, it's 9 minutes. And eventually they will air on Adult Swim, the cable, the channel, and they will be on Max, but they will be packaged as a little collection with other smalls. So whenever that comes out, I'll definitely kind of shout it out. But for now, they're only on YouTube.
Absolutely. And so first of all, it's 9 minutes. Please go check them out. They are awesome. I'll link them in the description or show notes or whatever, because they're 9 minutes. Don't do it right now. Because we're probably halfway through the episode. You can wait 30 more minutes to go check it out. But check it out. I need to ask, what was the process of having Adult Swim come to you and Samantha? How did that happen? How did Adult Swim come to you guys?
Yeah, so we had been working on the idea for High Moon Queen for a long time. I feel like because Sam and I came up with it when we were on Captain Fall. Full disclosure, so I was the episode director. Sam was one of my board artists, and because Sam had been a director on other shows before. We would just kind of talk a bunch, and I would talk to her about some of the behind the scenes stuff. And we were working on an episode that was sort of kind of the way it was written originally. I think they massaged it to be really, really good, to make a lot more sense, but the way it was originally written kind of felt like it was making fun of me too. Oh. And it was just kind of like such a huge bummer, and we were just kind of like, oh, please. So we were just kind of like so annoyed with it. We were like, we're gonna come up with a show with like a badass like superhero woman character who's to like kill all the awful men.
Yeah.
But also then when we were like kind of like working on it, we had written an 11-minute episode which I thought was hilarious, and we sent that to our agent, and our agent was like, okay, this is pretty funny, but it doesn't really make a ton of sense. Like there's some stuff that you guys need to rework for it to work as a series. Mm-hmm. So we, and then we were trying to write it as a 22. That was a mess. I would definitely tell people, if you have never written anything before, stick to an 11 first. Okay. And then when you get really, really good with the 11, you can move on to 22. Because like 22 is like so many pages. We were kind of going back and forth about it. We wrote and rewrote the pitch Bible. And then eventually I had lunch with my agent, and we were just kind of shooting the shit about like what I wanted to do with. He's actually a manager. It's a little bit different, but it's mostly the same. It's like the only thing that they do is like the difference between a manager and an agent. An agent is just there trying to find you gigs, and a manager is someone who's helping shape your career. So you can ask them like stuff like, you can tell them like, hey, this is the vision I have for my career. Hey, this is like, I want to prioritize these kind of gigs, and they help you kind of take the next step to get there. And sometimes that doesn't, the next step is not finding you the job. The next step could be, well, maybe you need to do a music video for free, because then you're gonna get a credit as a director and producer, and then you can, so these kind of things. And so my manager was like, well, Adult Swim, because I was like, oh, I really want to develop, I really want to write more stuff. Like I've been doing boards for 10 years. I love to try to really make more steps towards development and creating. And so they're like, well, Adult Swim has the Smalls program. You should try to pitch High Moon Queen that you've been working on for so long as some very tiny shorts. And so they gave us there's like an application thing or whatever. So we filled it out, and we met with the exec, Dave Hughes, who's awesome. He's credited, I think, in the shorts. Sick. Super sweet guy. He gave us a couple of notes, like some stuff wasn't super clear, and I was like, oh well, let's just kind of like hop on a Zoom and talk it through, and we can kind of see whether or not like what you're thinking, and we can kind of tell you what we're thinking, and then it doesn't have to be a million back and forth, and we can just kind of take it from there. And and then we kind of talked through a bunch of stuff, and then he was like, yeah, if you guys are down with the money, let's do it, because the money is not a lot at all.
I saw the name, I saw both your names pop up a lot, and I'm like, okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's like we were just like, so it was really fun making these, but definitely I painted all the backgrounds. Sam and I storyboarded, edited, wrote. We did pretty much everything except for the animation. Sam did a lot of the animation, but most of our budget went to animators. We mostly, basically all the money that Adult Swim gave us, we used it all on people. We didn't pay ourselves to work on. Yeah, because it was so like shoestring budget, and we were so happy with our animators, and we really wanted them to know that we were grateful for their work. And each animator animated at least like a minute.
Okay.
No, wait. 30. No, yeah, at least 30 seconds. Or animators who animated the most footage animated all the way up to a minute and a half. So that was Nico and Megan Boyd. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. And Sam also animated a lot. She animated, I think, 2 minutes or like something like that, like a big amount. But yeah, so yeah, we didn't take home any money, but we took home some credits, which is really cool. Because now the next step is like when necessary, you know, when my agent is going around and like pitching me for like certain type of position like supervising directing or like positions like that, he can be like, well, look, that's what Vee and Sam produced together for this budget, and like that's the quality you can get from them for like this budget. And imagine, like, you know, if you give them more money, the stuff they could make. So I think that's the really cool part about it. Yeah.
Oh, it is really exciting, and I was like, I can't believe you guys get paid. I'm sorry.
Well, we did get paid. Technically, is like I don't want to.
Sorry.
I don't want to badmouth Adult Swim.
Adult Swim. That was all on me. Also, it feels funny to say like Dave Hughes, because I think the first thing that popped in my head is I think he also created Off the Air.
Yes, and he's so cool. He's so sweet. I really love working with him. And you know, that's the thing about Adult Swim. They don't have a lot of money, but that's why you can make shows that are more insane. It's like they can take a risk and it's not a big deal. If you take a studio like Disney, there's so much at stake. They have to have a ton more notes just because of the brand, but also the brand is we make like high quality shows. So we put a lot of money in it. So because we put a lot of money, we want to make sure that it will appeal to the most amount of people. Whereas on the other hand, like Adult Swim's just kind of like, we're just making this for some stoners, you know? It's like we're like somewhat young adult, you know, kids in college or whatever. I know the audience is mostly male for Adult Swim, which is cool. And one of the reasons why Sam and we try to be conscious of that a little bit when we were writing. Obviously, we're both like assigned female at birth. Our sensibilities kind of like closer to, you know, girl talk or whatever, hanging out with the girls. But we were trying to find some stuff and I think Sean brought a lot to the table with just the humor and the stuff like that the ad-lib. Yeah, he's so funny. He came up with so much like really crazy ad-lib. I love him so much. He's so great to work with. And Sean is also working on some Adult Swim Smalls, and I cannot wait for y'all to see them. I think they're going to be really good. I think for me, he's the one that's the closest to kind of like an Equity and Hunger Force, I think.
I can see that, yeah.
You know, like I think for Sam and we were trying to do something a little bit more like Venture Brothers, where it's like we're like spoofing like a genre or
and
shows.
The tone,
But which I love Venture Brothers. I really love that show, but I don't think it was the most popular show on Adult Swim. Like a little bit more of a niche within Adult Swim. We are trying to do Venture Brothers, Super Gel, which are like kind of I love these shows, but I do think like if I say like Adult Swim, I think people are gonna think Equity and Hunger Force and Space Ghost, like and
I feel like Rick and Morty now too is like just
Rick and Morty, of course, Rick and Morty. I always forget about Rick and Morty. I always forget that.
It's all the gaps. It's like it's like hey, it's like it's back for like 10 weeks and then it's like gone.
Yeah, but for me, like Rick and Morty is like so polished in the way it almost feels like a Fox kind of show, you know. I always forget it's Adult Swim.
And how much I feel like it's like branding now. Just like I feel like Rick and Morty's so much like like you said, Fox. It feels so produced and like if you go to Adult Swim, like you get like You can get like the Yuletide lock, like they did that.
Oh yeah. The one
I forgot
crystal. Oh shoot.
We know where.
Fantasy, Yellow Fantasy.
Yeah,
no. Yeah. Yellow Crystal Fantasy, I think is the name.
Yeah, Yellow Crystal Fantasy, and I think that one of the guys on that work like is a co-creator on Smiling Friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, so I'm going to transition into the fast round. I don't know why I'm calling it the fast round, but it's a bunch of questions that are not generally related to the topics we've been talking about, and it will be the thing that will slide us into the end of the podcast.
Sounds great.
And this first one is a very New York question, so I need to LAify it. But the original question is, what is your bodega order? But I mean, would the LA equivalent just be like, what is your deli order, or like?
I would say for me, the closest thing to a bodega order was a tiny little, like, I think it counts as a bodega that was close to Sony. It was ran by a Mexican family, so they had, everything you have in a bodega, but also they did like Mexican food and always quesadilla. I always go for quesadilla.
Those are so good. So that sounds good. The next one. So my girlfriend Alex, as a trade-off for me doing this silly thing in our living room on a regular basis, I let her ask a question. And her question is, backs against the wall, what animal could you fight?
Oh my God.
And for reference, this is someone who watched, like, we watched Avatar Appa's Lost Days. We had to fast forward through that episode because she was gonna cry with how much Appa was going through. So no animal trauma is being called or induced, but like she says it tells a lot about a person, like how much what they think they could take.
Yeah, it's so funny because when that went around, that was a viral tweet about like what animal could you fight, and then so I started asking all my guy friends, and it was so funny. Because sorry, I'm not gonna like blast my boyfriend, but he said a kangaroo, and I was like, "You're nuts!" Because he really wanted like a big animal that he thought could, and I was like, "Have you watched any videos?" And I was like, and so we started watching a bunch of like kangaroo fighting videos.
Those kangaroos have like biceps for days.
They do. Not only are they like super strong on the upper body, but also their tail is super strong, and then they're like their rear feet can come up and like claw at you. You're dead. I mean, unless you're like your way around. I feel like for me, like I don't know. Because I don't have to prove anything to anyone about how big I can fight an animal. I've seen how much damage a cat can do, so I do not want to fight a cat. And on top of that, I love them so much. They're my favorite. I think I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, like, maybe I don't know, because even dogs, I'm scared of dogs. I'm scared of dogs. I would say maybe like a possum, like something that looks scary, but really you're just like, you're okay, buddy. And you can just like grab them. Yeah.
Like, get out of here, champ.
Yeah, something like that, or like I don't know, a turtle. But you can make them big, like a big turtle, and then you're like grabbing them, and you're like, "Ooh!"
I feel like as long as it's not a snapping turtle. When it's a snapping turtle, then you're done.
Those are so scary. I'm like, even when I say turtle, I'm like, some of them I wouldn't mess with. They're too scary.
Let me just flip it.
Yeah. And then you can grab a big one, a big one, and you're like, haha, I fought this turtle and nobody got hurt.
Nobody died.
Nobody died. And it's impressive. It's huge. Look, it like weighs at least like 100 pounds or something.
You just gotta hold it up.
Lift 100 pounds turtle.
Well, you just gotta hold it up in the air, get a photo, and be like, I conquered the turtle.
Yeah. I don't know. What What would you do? What would you fight?
I've been asking this. I just started asking this, and I'm legitimately trying to think about it. I know I got asked this when we first started dating. And
what was your answer then?
I think I was also like, I can't really, like, I'm weak. So I think like my answer, I think, was like a cat, but my cat's like right over here. Like, yeah, she's right over there. And like, I swear, like, yeah. Kinga, get your head out of the trash.
She's like, who's talking trash about me?
But no, she can square the fuck up. So I don't know about cats anymore.
Because they have like their claws are crazy. I don't know. I think like cats are like very fierce. They're more fierce than we give them like credits for. They're little predators.
I'm gonna cop out and say turtle because I just can't think of anything, and I'm like, I can't.
But you have to look on Google now. Everybody has to look on Google the biggest turtle you can find, so it still feels impressive.
Yeah,
but it's still a turtle.
You're like, that turtle? Done. Count.
Yeah.
So the last question. Well, not less of a question, but something I wanted to do. But the show used to be just about musicians. Music's still a cool part of the show, and we talked about music all the time. But the cool thing I think would be a way to connect everyone in this season is I want to make a mixtape of like different songs from all the guests.
Yeah.
So what's your mixtape song selection? What song are you bringing to the mixtape?
Oh my God. I would have to go with my favorite musician. So his solo name is Tobacco.
Okay.
He's part of Black Moth Super Rainbow. He also he has a couple side projects. One of them is Demon Queen. But he's like my favorite. I like if there was only one one artist I could listen to forever, and everybody else appeared, it would be him.
Yeah.
And he has like a new album coming out pretty soon. And the vibe is very like it's very psychedelic, but also like melty. It's electronic. So if anybody listening has seen Silicon Valley, he's the one who did the intro song.
Oh, really? Oh, sick. Okay, yeah.
But he didn't score it for Silicon Valley. It's just part of I forget which album, but it's under his name, Tobacco. And he has so many good ones that it's really hard to pick. But I would maybe go with I don't know if I want to go with the like angry type of songs that he can do, or like the like mellow, almost romantic songs. But I'll say Windshield Smasher because I really love the music video for it.
Okay.
And I backed the album on Kickstarter when he was doing the campaign back in 2013. And I actually I'm gonna grab. I didn't back in the time when I did the Kickstarter. I backed the Kickstarter. I really wanted the mask because he was doing masks that were also on the cover of the album. But I was barely started working, and so I was like, I don't think I can afford it. Like the mask was like $50, like a $50 reward.
Yeah.
And then much later, I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I didn't buy the mask. But my sister got it for me way after like a secondhand on eBay. She like bid for it. And it's so cool. Wait.
Yeah, wait. Oh, that is sick. Wait, what? It's like a is it like a lemon with like
yeah, so it's so cool. So basically it's like an orange that's split in half, and you have the eyes, like the little like scary nose, and it was inspired by one of these like 80s like squishable kind of characters, and it says on the teeth, it says BMSR for Black Moth Super Rainbow. So this is part of his like Black Moth project when he is in the band.
Yeah.
And every time he plays, like that's the full Yeah, I love his music so much. Yeah, it's so cool. And it's signed too.
That is sick. Have you ever worn it? You don't have to wear it.
I've worn it a couple, but not to events or anything, just for me. It's really funny to wear it because it makes your face look so weird. And in Windshield Smasher, if anybody listening looks up the music video, I love the music video so much. It's very weird. It's a little scary. And so it's like this hipster couple, they're in a car and they start getting angry because their direction, like GPS isn't working, and they end up in a little alleyway, and then this gang of like 3 people wearing this mask come at them, and it's almost like the music video is really weird, where it's this thing where it's like, oh, are they attacking them? Is this violent? But it's like almost a form of hazing to get them into their like weird gang.
Yeah,
and the hazing is kind of like all the weird stuff where it's like a little scary, but it toes that line where it's like, it's scary, but it's also not. It's scary because it's invasive, but it's not, they're not getting hurt, which is kind of interesting. There's stuff with like brushing their teeth and like, you know, cutting their hair, like stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that's so weird.
It feels very intrusive. I am so interested in it. I wrote it down to make sure I didn't forget to check it out.
It's my favorite. I love showing the music video to people. People are often like, "You're so weird. Like, why do you like this?" Because when you watch a music video, they're like, it's weird. I mean, I love it.
No, and I mean, hey, listen, when in the internet where clowncore is a thing,
I think this is weird because it's a little scary. It's like, because you're a little bit, it's unsettling is the word. And I think it's really cool. It plays more on like your emotions and sense of rather than, it's not really, there's no jump scares or anything. It's just like, oh, weird feeling,
that unease. And
and
we're gonna take that unease and I'm gonna turn it into Vee. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk and catch up. It's been awesome. I know we don't talk every single day like we used to, but like, it's so awesome getting to catch up and hang out. We gotta do this again more soon. Without the mics. But thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so happy. This was such a blast. You're a great host, and I'm so glad we could catch up. I miss you, and I'm so glad you reached out for this.
Like I said, Vee is awesome, and that was my conversation with them. Thank you so much to Vee for sitting down and talking with me. It was such an awesome time. And let's time to wrap this up. If you liked what you heard here, you're in luck. There's going to be even more episodes like this every single Monday. So please, wherever you're listening to this podcast, be it Spotify, YouTube, Apple, all those good stuff, please be sure to subscribe so those new episodes are fresh in your inbox, you know, like a fresh, like think of it like getting a bagel sent to your house right before you leave. A nice toasted everything bagel with cream cheese or lox if you're into it. So subscribe wherever you go. If you also want to keep up with some podcast stuff, keep up with some clips, get all the news on what's going on, follow us at ATA_pod on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. You can also follow us on Instagram at Against the Algorithm, just how it's spelled, all one word, and keep up with us on either of those platforms. The tunes you're listening to right now are courtesy of Artlist.io. The song's called Jetstream by artist named Leva. I wasn't even going to try to attempt to spell it or pronounce it. I know I'd butcher it. Thank you to our sponsors at Simple Content for sponsoring this episode, keeping lights on, because podcasting isn't cheap. Go check them out for all of your content writing needs. And with all that being said, Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Like we said, a new one will be coming in your inbox next week. But for now, stay gold, stay sane, peace.